The arranged path, the gold-embroidered invitation sat on Samira's bedside table, a constant reminder of the countdown. 73 days until she would become Mrs. Tariq Rahman. 73 days until the culmination of 25 years of proper behavior, dutiful choices, and preserved virtue. Are you still packing? Her mother's voice floated up the staircase of their modest, two-story home in Bradford. Your flight is tomorrow morning. Almost finished, Ami, Samira called back, carefully folding another modest tunic into her suitcase. This trip to Marrakech was her one concession, a week alone before surrendering to the choreographed dance of marriage that awaited her. Samira had never questioned the arrangement between her family and Tariq's. Their families had been friends for generations, and the match made perfect sense. Tariq was kind, stable, and respectful, everything a sensible woman should want. When he had formally proposed last year, presenting her with his grandmother's ring, she had accepted with the quiet gratitude expected of her. This is highly unusual, her father had grumbled when she requested permission for this solo journey. A young woman traveling alone before her wedding. It's 2025, Abu, she had reasoned gently. And I've saved for 3 years teaching at the primary school. I just want to see something of the world before... Before what? Before disappearing into the role that had been prepared for her since birth? Her phone buzzed with a message from Tariq. Have you finished packing? Remember to bring modest clothing. Morocco can be liberal in tourist areas. Samira sighed, typing back a polite response. Their conversations always followed this pattern, him instructing, her acknowledging. Perhaps that was what marriage was, supposed to be. Her parents' relationship had survived 30 years this way. She glanced at the small wooden box hidden beneath her sweaters, her journal collection spanning 15 years. The pages contained the only place she had ever truly spoken freely, questioning the traditions that shaped her life, while simultaneously embracing the comfort they provided. The next morning at the airport, her mother pressed a small prayer amulet into her palm. For protection, she whispered, her eyes revealing concern mixed with incomprehension. Why would her perfectly obedient daughter suddenly desire adventure? Samira didn't fully understand it herself. She only knew that something inside her had begun to stir in recent months, a restlessness, a wondering about the world beyond the neat boundaries of her existence. Her engagement to Tariq had somehow accelerated this feeling, rather than quieted. As the plane lifted off British soil, Samira closed her eyes, feeling oddly weightless. For the first time in her life, no one was watching her. No family members to report back on her behavior, no community eyes monitoring her choices, no Tariq guiding her decisions. She thought of her fiancé, his careful planning, his methodical approach to everything, including their relationship. Their first kiss had been brief, formal almost, following their engagement ceremony. He had respected her wish to save herself for marriage, never pressuring her for more. But sometimes, in her most private thoughts, she wondered if there should be more passion between them, more curiosity, more desire to discover each other. The flight attendant's voice broke through her thoughts, announcing their approach to Moroccan airspace. Samira gazed out the window at the approaching coastline of North Africa. For 1 week, she would be just Samira, not a daughter, not a fiancé, not a keeper of traditions. The plane dipped toward Marrakech Manara Airport, and she clutched her mother's amulet. Please, she whispered, though she wasn't sure what she was asking for. Protection? Yes, but perhaps also for clarity, for confirmation that the path she walked was truly her own. Desert winds, the labyrinthine streets of Marrakech's ancient Medina, swallowed Samira whole on her second day. Despite her careful preparation and map-reading skills, the winding alleyways had conspired to disorient her completely. The afternoon, sun beat down mercilessly as she clutched her guidebook, trying to appear confident while panic slowly rose in her chest. "You look like you could use some assistance," a gentle voice said in accented English. Samira turned to find a man in his early 30s watching her with an amused but kind expression. He wore simple linen clothes and carried a leather messenger bag across his shoulder. His eyes, warm brown with flecks of amber, crinkled slightly at the corners. "I'm perfectly fine," she replied automatically, the defensive response of a woman, taught to be wary of strange men. He nodded, seeming to understand her caution. "Of course. Though that map you're holding is upside down and you've been walking in circles for 20 minutes. He gestured to a small cafe tucked into an alcove. "I'll be having mint tea there if you decide you'd like directions." Embarrassment warmed her cheeks as she watched him walk away. After a moment's deliberation, and confirming that her map was indeed upside down, Samira followed, keeping a respectable distance between them as she approached his table. "I'm Idris Benamar," he introduced himself, standing politely until she took a seat across from him. "Local historian and occasional rescuer of lost tourists." "Samira Khan," she replied, adjusting her hijab slightly. "And I wasn't lost. I was exploring alternative routes." His laugh was unexpected, deep, and genuine. "The best discoveries happen when we're lost, don't they?" Something about his easy manner disarmed her usual reserve. Over steaming glasses of mint tea, she learned that Idris conducted historical tours of the city and was completing his doctorate on cultural preservation in modern Morocco. He spoke with passionate intelligence about his homeland, occasionally interrupting himself to greet local shopkeepers who passed by. "Where were you trying to go before you began your alternative route exploration?" he asked eventually. "The Majorelle Garden," she admitted. "It seemed simple on the map." "Nothing is simple in the Medina," Idris smiled. "It's designed to confuse invaders and apparently English tourists. I'm heading that direction myself if you'd like a guide." "Propriety," demanded she decline. Tariq would certainly disapprove of her spending time with an unknown man. Yet something, perhaps the adventure of being so far from home, perhaps the genuine warmth in Idris's expression, made her nod in agreement. Their walk through the bustling streets became an impromptu tour. Idris pointed out architectural details she would have missed, explained the significance of doorway designs, and introduced her to a spice merchant who let her smell rare blends not offered to most tourists. "You see that carving?" Idris pointed to an ancient wooden door. "It tells the story of a merchant who fell in love with a desert nomad. Their worlds couldn't have been more different, but some connections transcend the boundaries we create." Majorelle Garden. The cobalt blue buildings against lush greenery took Samira's breath away. They wandered among exotic plants and flowing fountains, their conversation flowing just as naturally. She found herself sharing details of her life. In England, her teaching career, even her upcoming marriage, something she rarely discussed with strangers. "An arranged marriage?" Idris asked without judgment. "That's still common in your community?" "It's not exactly arranged," Samira clarified, though she wasn't sure why his perception mattered to her. "Our families have always been close. We've known each other since childhood." "It makes sense." "And does it make your heart race?" he asked quietly, his eyes studying a vibrant bird of paradise flower rather than her face, giving her space to answer honestly. The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked about her feelings in quite that way before. "Not everything is about passion," she replied, repeating what she'd been told countless times. "Stability and shared values create lasting foundations." Idris nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps, though I've always believed that the most beautiful gardens grow from both deep roots and wild blooms." He gestured to the perfectly manicured paths alongside the more untamed sections of the garden. Both have their place, don't they? As the afternoon light turned golden across the gardens, Samira realized with surprise that she had spent hours in the company of this stranger who somehow didn't feel strange at all. When they finally parted ways near her riad, he handed her a small card. "I'm giving a talk at the Cultural Center tomorrow on Moroccan wedding traditions throughout history," he said. "You might find it interesting, given your upcoming celebrations. No pressure, of course." That night, as she messaged Tariq the usual update about her day, carefully edited to exclude Idris, Samira found herself holding the historian's card, tracing her finger over the embossed lettering of his name. She told herself she was simply curious about the academic content of his lecture. Nothing more, but the desert wind that rustled through. Her open window seemed to whisper otherwise, carrying promises of stories yet untold and questions she had never dared to ask herself. Two worlds collide. "You actually came?" Idris said, pleasant surprise evident in his voice as Samira slipped into the back row of the small lecture hall just as he was setting up his presentation materials. "I'm interested in history," she replied, simply, though they both recognized the half-truth in her words. The lecture proved fascinating. Idris spoke with scholarly precision, but wove in personal anecdotes and cultural insights that brought ancient traditions to life. He described how Moroccan wedding ceremonies had evolved while maintaining their essence across generations, the delicate balance between preservation and progress. Samira found herself raising her hand during the question period, surprising herself with her boldness. How do modern Moroccan couples navigate the expectations of tradition while finding their own path? Idris's eyes met hers across the room. They remember that traditions were made to serve people, not the other way around. The most meaningful ceremonies are those that honor the past while celebrating the unique love story of the present. His words lingered with her long after the talk concluded, as did his invitation to join a small group walking to a local restaurant. Against her better judgment, or perhaps following a better judgment she was just discovering, Samira went along. Over the next 3 days, Samira found herself drawn into Idris's world. He introduced her to his sister Nadia and her husband Khalid, who welcomed her into their home for a family dinner. She met his colleagues from the university, young Moroccans who moved fluidly between traditional values and modern ideas. They debated politics, art, and philosophy late into the evening at a local cafe, and Samira discovered a voice she hardly recognized as her own. Passionate, opinionated, unrestrained. "You're different when you speak about literature," Idris observed as they browsed a bookshop on her 5th day in Marrakesh. "Your whole face changes." "I wanted to study comparative literature," she confessed, "but my parents felt teaching primary school was more practical, more suitable." "And what did you feel?" The question was simple, yet no one had ever asked it quite so directly. "I felt grateful for their guidance," she answered automatically. Idris's silence invited more truth. "And disappointed," she added quietly. "But disappointment passes." "Does it?" he asked. "Or does it just go underground, shaping us in ways we don't fully understand?" That evening, Idris took her to a small rooftop restaurant overlooking the Kutubia Mosque. The sunset painted the ancient minaret in shades of gold and rose, while the call to prayer echoed across the city. They shared a traditional tagine as the stars emerged above them. Samira's phone buzzed repeatedly, Tariq checking in, as he did. Every evening. For the first time, she placed it face down without responding immediately. "Tell me about him," Idris said, nodding toward her silenced phone. Samira hesitated. "Tariq is reliable, responsible. Everyone respects him." "Those are qualities one might seek in an accountant," Idris noted with gentle humor. "What makes your heart connect to his?" The question left her momentarily speechless. She searched for the answer that had always seemed so obvious before this trip. "We want the same things," she finally said. A stable home, children raised with strong values, respect in our community. Important foundations, Idris acknowledged. And what about the rest? The joy of being truly seen, the thrill of discovering each other's minds, the comfort of showing your whole self to someone who cherishes. Even the parts you've been taught to hide? Samira looked away, uncomfortable with how accurately he had named the emptiness she had been trying not to recognize in her relationship with Tariq. Not everyone gets a great romance. Some of us choose security instead. Why must it be either or? Idris asked, reaching across the table. He stopped just short of touching her hand, respecting the boundaries she maintained. The most beautiful relationships I've witnessed offer both. Later, as they walked along the edge of Jama El Fna Square with its nighttime performers and food stalls, their shoulders occasionally brushed. Each fleeting contact sent unexpected warmth through Samira's body. They stopped near a group of musicians, the haunting sounds of traditional instruments filling the night air. "In 3 days, you'll be gone," Idris said quietly. "Back to your arranged life." "It's not—" She began to correct him, then stopped. "Yes. Back to the path I've chosen." "Have you chosen it, Samira? Or has it been chosen for you?" She had no answer, but as they stood there, surrounded by the pulsing life of the ancient city, something within her shifted. It wasn't desire for Idris specifically, though his presence had catalyzed it. It was desire itself, to choose, to explore, to determine her own destiny, awakening after years of dormancy. When he walked her back to her riad, they paused at the door. The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. "I respect your engagement," Idris said finally, "but I would regret not telling you that I've never met anyone who listens to the world the way you do, with your whole being. Your fiancé is fortunate beyond measure." That night, Samira lay awake, her thoughts in turmoil. She had traveled to Marrakech seeking confirmation of her chosen path. Instead, she had discovered a crossroads she hadn't known existed. Returning home, Bradford's familiar gray skies greeted Samira as she exited the airport terminal, a stark contrast to the vibrant blues and sun-washed terracottas of Marrakech. Her father waited by the car, his expression a mixture of relief and subtle disapproval that she had gone at all. "How was your adventure?" he asked, taking her suitcase. "Educational," she replied carefully, the word failing to capture the transformation of the past week. Home felt smaller somehow. Her bedroom, once her sanctuary, now seemed like a museum of her former self. Photos of her and Tariq sat on the dresser, posed, proper images from family gatherings and their engagement ceremony. She searched their frozen smiles for evidence of the connection Idris had described, the mutual recognition of souls. Tariq visited that evening bringing a small gift, a modest silver bracelet. "I missed our daily conversations," he said, sitting at a proper distance from her on the sofa under her mother's watchful eye. "Your messages became quite brief toward the end of your trip." Guilt flickered through her. "I was taking everything in," she explained. "The culture, the history." "Well, you're back now," he said with satisfaction. "We have the final meeting with the caterer next Tuesday, and my mother wants to discuss the seating arrangement." As he continued detailing wedding preparations, Samira studied him with new awareness. Tariq was handsome in a conventional way, his speech precise, his future meticulously planned. Yet she realized with growing clarity that in 15 years of knowing him, she had never once seen him deeply moved by anything. Not music, not literature, not the mysteries of the world. "What did you think about while I was away?" she asked suddenly, interrupting his monologue about reception venues. He looked startled by the question. "Think about? The usual, work, family obligations, wedding details?" "No, I mean." She hesitated, trying to articulate what she meant. What moves you? What makes you see the world differently? Confusion crossed his features. What's gotten into you, Samira? Did something happen in Morocco? Everything and nothing had happened. No boundaries crossed, no promises broken, only her perception fundamentally altered. How could she explain that she had discovered a hunger for emotional authenticity she hadn't known she possessed? "I'm just tired from traveling," she said finally, retreating into the safety of the expected. The following days passed in a blur of wedding preparations and family obligations. Samira went through the motions, trying to recapture the certainty she had felt before her journey. But each night, she found herself rereading the email Idris had sent to thank her for attending his lecture. His words thoughtful, engaging with her mind rather than simply her role as a future bride. Her mother noticed her distraction. "Cold feet are normal," she assured Samira as they reviewed floral arrangements. "I cried for 3 days before my wedding. But your father has been a good husband, and we've built a beautiful life. Feelings come and go, but commitment remains." Samira wondered if that was enough, if stability without passion, respect without revelation, could sustain her through the decades ahead. She thought of her students at school, how she encouraged them to pursue their curiosity, to ask questions, to seek understanding. Was she not deserving of the same courage in her own life? One afternoon, a small package arrived from Morocco. Inside, she found a book of Moroccan poetry and a handwritten note from Idris. "For the scholar you are, not just the teacher they see. Some truths can only be spoken in verse." That night, as she read the poems alone in her room, tears flowed freely down her cheeks. It wasn't about Idris himself. He remained essentially a stranger, a catalyst rather than a destination. It was about the version of herself she had glimpsed in his presence, vibrant, questioning, alive with possibility. When Tariq called to discuss the honeymoon plans he had arranged without consulting her, something crystallized in Samira's mind. "Can we meet tomorrow?" she asked. "Alone. There's something I need to discuss with you." The weight of what she was considering settled over her like a heavy cloak. Ending an engagement wouldn't just affect her and Tariq, it would ripple through both families, the community, her reputation. Everything she had been raised to value would be called into question. As she closed her eyes that night, the desert, winds of Marrakech seemed to whisper through her memory, carrying the question that had followed her home across continents. Was she brave enough to write her own story, even if it meant leaving the safety of a tale already written for her? Writing her own story. Rain tapped gently against the cafe window as Samira waited for Tariq. She had chosen a place in the city center, away from their community's watchful eyes, neutral territory for the conversation ahead. When he arrived, precisely on time as always, his expression shifted from pleasant to concerned as he registered her serious demeanor. "What's wrong?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from her. "Is it the wedding plans? We can adjust anything that's bothering you." Samira took a deep breath. "It's not the plans, Tariq. It's us. I've been doing a lot of thinking since Morocco." His posture stiffened. "Did something happen there? Did you meet someone?" "Yes and no," she answered truthfully. "I met parts of myself I didn't know existed. I discovered questions I never thought to ask." With gentle honesty, she explained her realizations, that their relationship had been built on expectations rather than connection, that they had never truly chosen each other, but simply accepted what was arranged. "But we make sense together," Tariq insisted, confusion evident in his voice. "We want the same things." "Do we?" she asked softly. "Have we ever truly asked each other? In all our years of knowing one another, when have we ever shared our deepest fears, our wildest dreams, the thoughts that keep us awake at night?" His silence was answer enough. "You deserve someone who loves you completely, not someone going through the motions because it's expected," she continued, reaching for his hand across the table, their first genuine touch in years of courtship. And I need to discover who I am before I can truly give myself to anyone. The conversation lasted hours, moving from shock to hurt to the beginnings of understanding. By the time they parted, the rain had stopped, and a tentative sun broke through the clouds, a fitting metaphor for the painful clarity they had achieved. The weeks that followed tested Samira's resolve in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her father barely spoke to her, his disappointment a tangible presence in their home. Community whispers followed her at the mosque, at family gatherings, in the grocery store. Her mother alternated between tearful pleas to reconsider and silent resignation. "You were raised better than this," her aunt scolded during a tense family dinner. Throwing away a good match for what? Some romantic fantasy? "Not a fantasy," Samira replied quietly. "The chance to make my own choice, whatever that might be." She found unexpected allies, her youngest uncle who had married for love, against family wishes now celebrating 20 happy years, her school principal who offered wisdom from her own non-traditional path, even Tariq himself, who after initial anger had shown remarkable grace. "I think I always knew something was missing between us," he admitted during a chance meeting weeks later. "I just didn't have the courage to acknowledge it." 3 months after ending her engagement, Samira applied for a master's program in comparative literature, the dream she had abandoned years before. When the acceptance letter arrived, she celebrated by booking a ticket, not to Morocco but to Istanbul, another city she had always wanted to explore. The night before her departure, she finally wrote to Idris, not to pursue a relationship, but to thank him for the mirror he had inadvertently held up to her life. His reply came quickly. "Some people enter our lives not to stay, but to show us possibilities we couldn't see before. I'm honored to have been that person for you as you continue writing your own story." Samira stood on the rooftop of her family's home her last evening in Bradford, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades reminiscent of Marrakesh. Her mother joined her, their relationship slowly healing through honest conversations. "I worried all my life about protecting you," her mother said quietly. "Perhaps I should have spent more time preparing you to protect yourself, to know your own mind and heart." "You did your best," Samira assured her. "And now, I'll do mine." The next day, as her plane lifted off British soil once again, Samira felt none of the guilt or fear that had plagued her for months. In her journal, she wrote, "Purity isn't just about the body. It's about intention, honesty, and courage. My journey isn't about finding someone else. It's about finding myself first. Only then will I know what kind of love story I want to write, and with whom I might write it. For now, this blank page is not emptiness, but possibility." The amulet her mother had given her still hung around her neck, but its meaning had transformed. It no longer represented protection from the world outside, but rather courage for the journey within, the true pilgrimage of her heart.